We are starting for the lecture for English 255. The secret of work. Swami Vivekananda. First of all, in the context as the introduction, objectives, secret of the work. 1. Secret of the work. 2, 3, 4. Difficult words, phrases, critical commentary. Answer to check your progress. Summary exercise for the reading. Okay. So in this part, as I have described you, in each lesson, in each unit, we have to describe the description of the writer Swami Vivekananda while writing your answers in your question paper. Okay. Means the introduction part is much necessary. Okay. Now we will start to the introduction first. Swami Vivekananda in, and first of all, you can look for the questions also. Keep ready your questions so that according to the questions, to cover up your answers, you can underline the answers when you will go through while we are reading. Swami Vivekananda, 1862 to 1902, was born of a well-known family in Kolkata. His name, Vishweshwar Dutt, was changed to Narendranath Dutt. He when he was sent to school, he became graduate in 1884. But even before that, in 1881, he had come under the influence of a great saint, Ramakrishnan Paramahansa. He was supposed to join law after graduation. Okay, means he completed his law and then he made his graduation. But the influence of Sir Ramakrishnan changed his completely and he became a sannyasi. Everybody knows what do you mean by sannyasis. After the death of Sri Ramakrishna, he became the leader of Ramakrishna order and started preaching Hindu religion philosophy. Okay. In 1893, he was nominated as Indian representative to the Parliament of Religion in Chicago. There, he made a great impression speaking on the Vedantic Hinduism. On returning to India, he founded the Ramakrishna Mission for Religious Reformer. Means Ramakrishna, he made a mission for religious reformer, preaching true religion principles and took up social work to help the poor in the country. When he went to England in 1896 to address a number of meetings, in the same year he founded the Vedantic Society of New York. In 1898, he established the Santi Ashram near San Francisco. Swami Vivekananda made Hindu philosophy popular in the European countries and America. Quite a few Americans converted to Hinduism under his influence. His chief literacy work are Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. His career was very brief. He passed away suddenly at the age of 40. Okay. Now we will see the chapter 2.2, the secret of the work. Means how he made his work secret work, which is a very good for reading. The secret of the work, part 1. Helping others physically by removing their physical needs is indeed great, but the help is greater and according as the help in far reaching. If a man wants can be removed for an hour, it is helping him indeed. If his wants can be removed for a year, it will be more help to him. But if he wants can be removed forever, it is surely the greatest help that can be given him. Spiritual knowledge is the only thing that can destroy our miseries forever. Any other knowledge satisfies knowledge of the spirit, that the faculty of want in inhalation, inhalated forever. So helping man spiritually is the highest help that can be given to him. He who gives man spiritual knowledge is the greatest benefactor of mankind, and as such, he always find that those were the most powerful of men who help man in his spiritual needs, because spiritual in the true basis of all activities in life. A spiritual strong and sound man will be strong in ever other respect. If he so wishes, until there is spiritual strength is in man, even physical needs cannot be well satisfied. Next to spiritual comes intellectual health. The gift of knowledge is a far higher gift than that of food and clothes. It is even higher than giving life to a man, because the real life of man consists of knowledge. Ignorance is death. Knowledge is life. Life is of very little value if it is a life in the dark, grouping through ignorance and misery. Next in order comes of course helping a man physically, therefore is considering the question of helping others. We must always strive not to commit the mistake of thinking that physical help is the only the help that can be given. It is not only the last but the least, because it cannot bring about permanent satisfaction. The misery that I feel when I am hungry is satisfied by eating, but hungry hunger returns. My misery can cease only when I am satisfied beyond all wants. The hunger I will not make me miserable. No distress, no sorrow will not make me miserable. No distress, no sorrow will be able to move me, so that which tends to make us strong spiritual in the highest text to it comes intellectual health, and after the physical health. The misery of the world cannot be secured by physical help only. Until man's nature changes, the physical needs will always arise, and misery will always be left, felt, and no amount of physical help will cure that completely. The only solution of the problem is to make mankind pure. Ignorance is the mother of all the evil and the misery we see. Let me live, let me have light, let me be pure and spiritual, strong and educated, then alone will misery cease in the world, not before. We may convert every house in the country in into a charity asylum. We may fill the land with hospitals, but the misery of man will still continue to exist until man's character changes. Now, in part one, what are the three kinds of help? You can look for the questions. What is an intellectual help? As per the questions given, you can go through the questions also. Why is physical help least important? What is the source of all evil and misery? Okay. The secret of the work, part 2, 2.3. We read in the Bhagavad Gita again and again that we must all work incessantly. All work is by nature composed of good and evil. We cannot do anything, any work which will not do some evil. We cannot do any work which will not do some good somewhere. There cannot be any work which will not cause some harm somewhere. Even work must necessarily be a mixture of good and evil. Yet we are commanded to work insistently. Good and evil will both have their result, will produce their karma. Good action will entail upon us good effect, bad action, bad, but good and bad are both bondages of the soul. The soul riches in the Gita is in regard to his bondage, producing nature of the work. In that, if we do not attach ourselves to the work we do, it will not have any binding effect on our soul. We shall try to understand what is meant by his non-attachment to work. This is the one central idea of the Gita. Work instantly, but be not attached to it. Samskara can be translated very nearly by inherent tendency, using the simile of a lake for the mind. Every ripple, every wave that rises in the mind when it subsides does not die or entirely, but even a mark and a future possibility of that wave coming out again. This mark will then possibility of the wave reappearing is what is called samskara. Every work that we do, every movement of the body, every thought that we think leaves such an impression of the mind, stuff, and even when such impressions are not obviously on the surface, they are sufficiently strong. On the surface, they are sufficiently strong to work beneath the surface subsequently, subconsciously. But we are every moment in determined by the sum total of this impression on the mind. What I am just at the this moment is the effect of the sum total of all impressions of my past life. This is really what it means by character. Each man's character is determined by the sum total of this impression. If good impressions prevail, the characters become good. If bad, it becomes bad. If a man continuously heard bad words, think bad thoughts, does bad actions, this mind will be full of bad impression and they will influence his thought of work without his being conscious of the fact. In fact, these bad impressions are always working and their result must be evil. And that that man will be a bad man. He cannot help it. The sum total of these impressions in his will create the strong motive power of doing bad actions. He will create the strong motive power for doing bad actions. He will be like a machine in the hand of the imprisoned and they will force him to do evil. Similarly, if man thinks good thoughts and does good works, his sum total of the impressions will be good, and they in the similarly manner, manner will force to do good even in spite of himself. When a man has done so much good work and thought so many good thoughts that were in an in irresistible tendency in him to do good in spite of himself, and even if he wishes to do, his mind as the sum of the total tendencies will not allow him to do so. The tendencies will turn him back. He is completely under the influence of the God tendencies. When such in the case, a man's good character is state, said to be established as the tortoise struck its feet and ahead inside the shell, and you may kill it and break it in pieces, and yet it will not come out. Even so, the characters of that man who has control over his motive and organs in unchangeably established. He controls his own inner forces, and nothing can draw them out against his will. By his continuously reflects of good thoughts, good impression moving over the surface of the mind, the tendency of doing good becomes strong, and as a result, we feel able to control the indrayas, the sense of organs, the nerve centers. Thus, along will character be established, then alone a man gets to truth. Such a man is safe forever. He cannot do an evil. You may place him in any company. There will be no danger for him. There is a still higher stage that having his good tendency, and that is the desire for liberation. You must remember that freedom of soul is goal of all yogas, and each equally leads to the same result. By work alone, men may get to where Buddha got largely by meditation of Christ by prayer. Buddha was working Janani, Christ was a bhakti, but the same goal was reached by both of them. The difficulty is here. Liberation means entire freedom, freedom from bondage of good as well as from the bondage of evil. A golden chain is much a chain as a iron one. There, there is a thorn in my finger, and I use another to take a first of one out. And when I have taken it out, I throw both of them aside. I have no necessity for keeping the second thorn because both are thorns after all. So the bad tendency are to be c- contracted by the good ones, and the bad impression of the mind should be removed by the fresh waves of good ones until all that on his mind should be removed by the fresh waves of good ones until all that is evil almost disappears or it subdued and held in control in a corner of the mind. But after that, the good tendencies have also to be conquered. Thus, the attached becomes the unattached. Work, but let not the action or the thought produce a deep impression on the mind. Let the ripples come and go. Let huge actions proceed from the muscle and the brain, but the let them not make any deep impression on the soul. How can this be done? We see that the impression of any action to which we attach ourselves remains. I may meet hundreds of persons during the day among and meet also one whom I love. And when I retire at night, I may try to think of all the facts I saw, but all that face
come before the mind, the face which I meet perhaps only for 1 minute and which I loved, all the other have vanished. My attachment to the particular person caused a deeper impression on the mind that all the other faces. Physio- phil- Physiologically, the impression have all. Physiologically means by all means. See, physiologically, the impression have all been the same. Everyone, the face that I saw picture itself on the retina, and the brain took the picture in, and yet there was no similarity of the effect on the mind. Most of the faces perhaps were entirely few faces about which I have never thought before, but that one face of which I got a glimpse found associated inside. Perhaps I had pictured him in my mind for years, knew hundreds of things about him, and this one new vision of him awakened hundreds of sleeping memories in my mind, and his one impression having been repeated perhaps 100 times more than those of different faces together will produce a greater effect on the mind. Therefore, he unattached the things work, let brain-centered work incessantly, but let not a ripple conquer the mind. Work as if you were a stranger in his land, a sojourner. Work insistently, but do not bend yourself. Bondage in terrible. This world is not our habitation. It is only one of the many stages through which we are passing. Remember that great sayings. See, we are coming whenever the last this thing. Remember that the great sayings of Sankhya, the whole of nature is for the soul, not for the soul of nature. The very reason of nature existence in the is for the education of soul. It has no other meaning. No other meaning. If we remember this always, we have never been attached to nature. We shall knowledge the nature in a book in which we are to read. And what when we again required knowledge, the book is of no more value of us. Instead of that, however, we are thinking that the soul of the nature, that spirit is for the flesh, and as common saying has we think that man lives to eat and not eat to live. We are continuously making the mistakes. We are regarding nature as ourselves and are becoming attached to it. And as soon as this attachment comes, there is the deeper impression on the soul which bind us down and make us work from freedom but like slaves. See, for your check your progress, you can answer the questions given below in serial 1 to 9. Okay, you will get the answers accordingly. Now you can cover these answers according to the chapter we are going through, the secret of the work, part 3, 2.4. The whole gist of teachings is that you should work like a master and not a slave. Work insistently, but do not slave work. Do not do you not see how everybody works? Do you have do you not see how everybody works? Means do you not see means have you noticed that how everybody works? Nobody can be altogether at rest. 99% of mankind work will slave, and the result is misery. It is all selfish work, work through freedom, work through love, the world work. The word love is very difficult to understand. Love never comes until there is a freedom. There is no true love possible in the slave. If you buy a slave and tied him down in a chain and make him work for you, he will work like a drudge, but there will be no love in him. So when we ourselves work for the things of the world as slave, there can be no love in us, and our work is not true work. This is true of work done for relatives and friends, and it is true to work done for our own slaves. Selfish work is slave's work. And here is a test. Every act of love brings happiness. There is no act of love which does not bring peace and blessedness as it reacts. Its reaction. Real existence, real work, and real love are externally connected with one another. The three in one. Every one of them is the other also. Must be. They are the three aspects of one without the second, the existent knowledge, bliss. When the existent becomes relative, we see it as the world. That knowledge becomes in its turn modified into the knowledge of the things of the world. That and bliss forms the foundation of all true love knowledge to the heart of man. Therefore, true love can never react so as to cause pain either to the lover or the beloved. Suppose a man loves a woman, he wishes to have her all to himself and feels extremely jealous about her every moment. He wants her to sit near him, to stand near him, and to eat and move and his bidding. He is slave to her and wishes to have her as his slave. That is not love. It is a kind of morbid affection of slave insinuating itself as love. It cannot be love because it is a painful. If he does not do what he wants, it brings him pain. With love, there is no painful reaction. Love only brings a reaction of bliss. If it goes, not it, it is not love. It is mistaking something else for love. When you have succeeded in loving your husband, your wife, your children, the whole world, the universe in such a manner that there is no reaction of pain or jealous, no selfish feeling that you are in the fit state to be unattached. Krishna says, look at me, Arjuna. If I stop from work for one moment, the whole universe will die. I have nothing to do again more work. I am the one Lord, but why do I work? Because I have the world. I have the world love. But God is unattached because he loves the real love make and unattached whenever there is attachment, the clinging to the things of the world. You must acknowledge that it is all physical attraction between sets of particles of matter, something that attracts towards bodies near all the times, and if it cannot get near procedure pain, but there where there are in real love, it does not rest no on physical attachment at all. Such lovers may be thousand miles away from one another, but their love will be all the same. It does not die and will never produce any painful reaction. To attain the attachment is almost of life work, but so as we have reached this point, we have attained the goal of love and become free. The bondage of nature fall from us, and we see as she is. She forgives no more change for us. We stand entirely free and take no result of work into consideration. Who then cares for what the result? Do you ask anything from the children in return, for you won't give him. It is your duty to work them, and there are the matter ends. If in whatever you do for a particular person, a city or a state assume the same attitude towards as you have words towards children, accept nothing in return. If you can invariably take a position of a giver in which everything given by you is a free offering to world without any thought of return, then will work you an attachment. Attachment comes only when we accept a return. Okay. Now you can check the progress for answer the following question in one or two sentences which are likely to be asked during your examination. What is working like a master? What happens if you work like a slave? What is the test of unselfish work? What is the nature of the true love? What does, according to the each para, you can see certain answers you can see. Why does the Lord Krishna work? We have come across Lord Krishna's work, what he has said. How does now how we can be free from the bondage of the nature, and what should be our attitude to our social work. Okay, so now we will go to point 2.5, the secret of the work. If if working like slave results in selfishness and attachment, working as master of our own minds gives rise to the bliss of non-attachment. We often talk at right and justice. See, again and again, the justice word is used, the right word is used, the love you before we have seen, it is used by Swami Vivekananda in his The Secret of the Work. You can see and read it and think for that. There are two things which guide the conduct of man, might and misery. The exercise of might is invariably the exercise of selfishness. All men and women try to make the most of whatever power of advantage they have. Mercy is heaven itself to be good. We have all to be merciful. Even justice and right should stand on mercy. Although of obtaining return for the work, we do not hinder our spiritual progress. Nay, in the end, it brings misery. There is another way in which the idea of mercy and selfishness charity can be put into practice. That is by looking upon the work as a worship. In case we believe a personal goal, God is very here. We give all the fruits of our work up to the Lord and worshipping Him thus. We have no right to accept anything from mankind for the work we do. The Lord Himself works incessantly and is every without attachment. Just as water cannot wet the lotus leaf, so work cannot bind the unselfish man by giving the rise to attachment to result. The selfless and unattached man may live in the very heart of a crowded and sinful city. He will not be touched by him. This idea of complete self-sacrifice is illustrated in following stories. Means how he has sacrificed the self-sacrification. After the battle of Kurukshetra, the five Pandava brothers performed the great sacrifice and said that such a sacrifice that the world had never been before. But after the ceremony, there came a little mongoose, half of whose body was golden and other half brown, and he began to roll on the floor of the sacrifice hall. He said to those around, "You are all liars. This is no sacrifice." What they exclaimed, "You say this? No sacrifice. Do you know how money and jewels are proused out to the poor and everyone become rich and happy. This was the most wonderful sacrifice any man ever performed. But the Mungu said, there was once a little village, and it there dwelt a poor Brahmin with his wife, his son, and his son's wife. They were very poor and lived on a small gift made to them for preaching and teaching. There came in that land a 3 year famine, and the poor Brahmin suffered from the ever. At last, when the family had starved for days, the father brought home on morning a little barley flour, which he had been fortunate even to obtain, and he divided into the parts one of each member of the family. They prepared it for their meal, and just as they were about to eat, there was a knock at the door. After they opened it, and there stood a guest. Now in India, just a sick, scarred person. He is a god for the time being and must be treated as such as. So the poor Brahmin said, "Come in, sir. You are welcome." He set before the guest his own portion of the food, which the guest quickly ate and said, "Oh, sir, you have killed me. I have been starving for 10 days. I have been starving, and this little bit has increased my hunger." If the wife said to her husband, "Give me my share," but the husband said, "No, so, not so." The wife forever insisted, saying, "There is a poor man, and it is not our duty as householder to see that he is fed, and it is my duty as a wife to give him my portion, seeing that you have no more to offer him." Then he gave a share to guest, which he ate and said was still burning with hunger. So the son said, "Take my portion also." In the duty of a son to help his father to fulfill the obligation. The guest ate that, but remained still unsatisfied. So the son's wife gave him her portion also. That was sufficient, and guests departed, blessing them. That night, those four people died for starvation. A few granules of that flour had fallen on the floor, and when I rolled my body on them, half of it became gold. As you see, since I have been traveling all over the world, looking to find another sacrifice like that, but nowhere I have found one. Nowhere else has the other half of my body been turned into gold. What is why? That is why I say this is no sacrifice. This idea of charity is out of India. Great men are becoming fewer and fewer. When I was first learning English, I read an English storybook in which there are a story about a dutiful boy who had gone out to work and had given some of his money to his old mother, and his was praised in 3 or 4 pages. What was that? No Hindu boy can ever understand the moral of that story. Now I understand it when I hear the Western idea, every man for himself, and some men take everything for himself, and fathers that mothers and wives and children go to the wall. That should never and never be the idol of his householder. Now you see that karma yoga means even the point of death to help anyone without speaking, asking questions. We cheated millions of times, and never ask a question, and never think of what you are doing. Never want of your gift to the poor or accept the gratitude, but rather be gratified, grateful of them by giving you the occasion of practicing charity of them. This is in plain that to be an ideal householder is a much more difficult task than to be an ideal sannyasi. The true life of work is indeed as hard as, if not harder than the equally true life of renunciation. See, you can check for your progress score. Answer the questions in one or two sentences given below as we have read the chapter. 2.6 difficult words and phrases, text 1. We have given some uh, difficult words. You can find the answers meaning for the same words according to the chapter is being given. You can look to the paragraph what notes they have described in Swami Vivekananda's this thing. Now see, according to the para, he has described all the uh, concepts to all the pages up till now. We have read them according to the meanings to each and every questions, each and every word, and according to each para, they have described all the things how he had described all of them. So this is you have to see for the main thing what they have given. Just go through, read by your own, you will get the answers in the para. Okay, 2.7 critical contemporary. Swami is Guru, a preacher. In this essay, he is perching Karma Yoga, the importance of the self-worth. His aim is to show how through self-work one can be this misery of this world and achieve liberation. Vivekananda's writing for Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Raja Yoga have become popular not only in India but in the Western countries also. The secret of the work is a part of his speeches. Means up till now, what we have learned, what is the secret of the work? It is a part of his speeches on the Karma Yoga. Work like a master, not a slave. He says in Swami Karma Yoga, you need not believe in God, but you should work selfless. Okay, so you can go through the each and every concepts of Swami Vivekananda and how is the style of Swami Vivekananda. This can be asked in the exam point of view.